Welcome, spooky friends, and all of those of you who are just dipping your toe into the horror movie genre. I'm Ray, and this is the B3 Horror Podcast. We're talking about 1973's Flesh for Frankenstein. It's absolutely the craziest, bonkers, gory sex fest in a long time. You will hear this movie referred to as Flesh for Frankenstein, Andy Warhol's Frankenstein, Andy Warhol's Flesh for Frankenstein, and just plain old Frankenstein. The only thing we haven't heard is Epstein, which is too close to Epstein, so that's the reason why we haven't heard that, and I will never say that again. So that happened. But like I just alluded to, Andy Warhol's name is all over this movie for various reasons. I would never think in the year of our Lord 1973 that Andy Warhol, famed artist, would also be known for a gory sex-fueled romp, but here we are. I don't know why I didn't think that, because there's plenty of the signs were there sort of situation, but I was wrong. While this was mostly in name only of Andy Warhol, there's a reason why they attribute it to him. And that, again, I'm not going to get into who Andy Warhol is. I mean, if you don't know, which young people today might not, I don't know. I mean, he was popular in the 70s and 60s, so possibly not. But I mean, most people know Andy Warhol. But if you don't, very famous artist, painter, photographer, just general like celebrity. If we're talking like an absolutely just celebrity, that would be Warhol. He established the term or the form of pop art. So he's loved and hated in different circles of the art world. I think everyone appreciates his talent, but at the same time, they don't appreciate the commodification of art that he instituted in his what he called the factory. And that's where this movie kind of comes from. So he believed in an art collective, which is very popular. It's it's a grouping of artists who kind of like they just meld together and kind of make really good work, or it's just an environment for those of who are they're attracted to the arts and just don't have a place to kind of like, it just lets you be expressive and free in an environment that is very no limitations. And that's what his quote unquote, they were called factory. There was 3 different factories that he had during his span of his time in New York City. The one that in particular that pertains to this movie is the Silver Factory, which is his 47th Street location. Again, most popular is unfortunately where he was also shot, almost fatally wounded, by Valerie Solanas. But this was the ultimate homage to his view of how art, the commodification of art, how we can make art a commodity. He, throughout his life, definitely pushed the idea of art as a product. And a lot of people were upset with that because what they believed was when you do create the productification or the commercialization of art, you take away the meaning behind it. So in essence, his Silver Factory here in the 47th Street was very much, he knew that, and that's the reason he wanted it to look like a factory. Everything inside was from floor to ceiling covered in aluminum foil. Everything that wasn't covered in foil was painted silver. So your toilet, your copy machine, probably the sink, that kind of stuff, all of it was silver. During this time, many famous people came through the factory. There's countless, too many to share, but to give you an idea, we have like the Velvet Underground was a musical group that Warhol created and produced. They performed quite a bit in the underground, but also they used their influence to kind of gain or kind of get to increase attention to the factory setting. Interview magazine was started by Warhol during this time too, which we still have. In fact, their last month's cover was Robert Pattinson and Zendaya, and some other well-known people coming through the factory would have been Candy Darling and Holly Woodlawn, who were 2 very famous trans actresses at the time. Famous, favorite of the show, another actress, Mary Warnov, of Eating Raoul fame, Chopping Mall, Terror Vision, you name it, she's probably been in it. What was the one that I really, really love? Night of the Comet. She's a doctor in Night of the Comet. She's great. Still beautiful today. And then lastly, the reason I bring this up is because it's Paul Morrissey who directed Flesh for Frankenstein. He was very popular during this time. And not too much like before Warhol was kind of unknown experimental films. But then when he got to the factory, or when he started producing at the factory of some of the films, he actually made two different trilogies during this time. The first was his Flesh trilogy, which does not include Flesh or Frankenstein, actually. I believe it's Flesh, Heat, Singe? No, there's something else. I can't remember what the last one is of that trilogy. This is the second of his. It's unnamed, but this involves his first film in the trilogy is of Dracula, and this one, and then also Brother of Beethoven, I believe is the last one in this one. But they are all horror-based for the most part. There's some sort of gore or like very intense imagery in all of his films. But in terms of what Andy's hands in the project were, he believed he liked to play part in the creative process, but necessarily wasn't like, even if he wasn't making the art, he wasn't making the artistic decisions, he still liked to play a part. He would provide input, but for the most part, it was up to the artist or the director to decide whether or not they were going to take it. There was no like blank check hanging over their head if they decided not to take his opinions or his suggestions. It was just wasn't taken, and we parted ways, and Andy was fine. He just wanted to have that ability to be able to put his, a little bit of his impression on the film. And in fact, Paul Morrissey said about Andy that in everything to do with film, Andy always did whatever I asked him to do. His ideas never went beyond, why don't you use this person? Primarily Joe D'Alessandro. 90% of the cases, I didn't think they were right, and I didn't use them. But Andy didn't care. Morrissey jived with Warhol's like open artistic environment. This movie in particular, is like his other films, is very much a tongue-in-cheek, like gory horror with something to say. Like it's got a number of themes which we'll go into, but it's not quiet. It's not a quiet movie for her at all. Even when the soundtrack is supposed to be subdued or like creating tension. And one scene in particular, there's a trumpet fucking solo. There's like an anthem playing. I'm like, my God, this doesn't work here, but it does. It works for the absurdity of the scene. And I think that kind of makes this movie just a little bit different. This is the height of Morrissey right here, of what he's done. His oeuvre was mostly through the factory. So we open the film in the year of fuck you. I don't know what year it is. Is it 1810, 1910? Where in the world is Carmen Sandiego and us? Because I don't fucking know. And we get nothing. We get possibly Victorian costumes, but then they're also, they've got a baroche cart. I don't know. It's weird. It's very weird. I don't understand. It's beautiful, but at the same time, what? Don't know. Anyhow, so it doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things of when the movie takes place, in honesty. It is. And what I kind of like about this, it's very reminiscent of, or I should say It Follows, because we just rewatched that just recently, has the same feeling where it's like, I spent most of my time during It Follows not paying attention because I'm like, when are we? And there's a couple other movies where I've done that too, where I'm like, from my reviews going like, it took me so long just trying to figure out when we were, that I was not paying attention to the plot. Now, I've watched this a couple times, so I kind of like had to pay attention, but I kind of like that because it is timeless in that sense that I'm like, since you don't know when we're at, it's okay. You're not too worried about it. I'm not too worried about it. The themes still stand today. So I guess at the time period doesn't really matter. But here we open with Baron Frankenstein, played by a very gorgeous young Udo Kier. And let me just take a second to talk about the pronunciations that Udo Kier has in this movie. Crazy. Like, they could have easily brought in a dialogue coach and been like, Udo, your eyes are beautiful. And we know the ladies in the audience and some of the men, are going to be loving them, but we need to be able to understand what the fuck you're saying. I will include many different pronunciations that he has in here. Fallopian tube is one of the best.
The problem with the fallopian tube. I have to replace it to make it stronger.
But he literally ends the movie on, "I shall not die in Wayne."
You have put an end to my experiments, but my work will live on. I am not going to die in Wayne. My work has not been finished. My best.
Fountains of Wayne? Possibly. I don't know. But oh boy, the pronunciations. Any hoozles. We open with Mr. Udo Kier here with the Baron and his Igor. In this movie, known by Otto. And I'm just going to say, Otto is probably a derivative of autoerotic asphyxiation. It is not. It's probably. We're all just assuming it probably is, but that's where his delightful nickname comes from. And they're just digging. They're all just digging through bodies of corpses, just pieces and parts to make up the perfect male and female creatures. I can give complete props to the actors playing the leftover parts, because when they're carried around, brilliant. They do such a great job. They are so dead weight that it's not to the point where they're dragging bodies, but the actors did a really good job. And they're not weighted dummies, because if they couldn't get him a teacher or speech tutor, trainer, whatever, they didn't have money for weighted dummies. Nah. So the first major theme that's running through this movie is the commodification of the human body. So like Warhol did with art. Now, when I said commodification, I kind of mean the fact is that Warhol he believed that anybody should be able to have access to art. In essence, if you're boiling it down, if we boil down all of it, part of it is commercialization and also wanting the sweet, sweet cash that comes along with it. In essence, I do believe that a lot of it was access to art for those of us because for so many years, and still to this day, art is kind of it's gate kept by those who can afford to go to the opera, go to the orchestra, go to concerts, I would love to see the Mona Lisa live, see it with my own fresh, beautiful eyes. But I don't have money to do that. And so I am denied access to certain aspects of being able to enjoy and take in art. And Warhol wanted us to be able to have a print of flowers in our house to enjoy whenever we deemed fit. Now, unfortunately, that has also opened the door to you can have a print of anything on your walls, good or bad, and it just depends on how you look at it. I don't see a problem with it. I can see where it gets out of hand, but so they're trying to say something here with the commodification of human bodies. There's all these bodies out here. Why are we gatekeeping being able to have access to these bodies? Well, at the time, unfortunately, Baron didn't have any gatekeeping. He was the gatekeeper to the bodies because he's obsessed with creating the aesthetically perfect body. Specifically, he wants to create the perfect male and female form that will procreate in precisely the way he desires. We'll get to that. We'll get to why that is in a second, but this isn't subtle at all.
We have to find the right head for this torso. It has to be of a man who strongly craves women, whose overriding urges are sensual.
The film opens again with Frankenstein and Otto examining bodies like they're shopping for parts. They're literally treating human flesh like raw materials and as components to be assembled rather than human beings with inherent dignity or rights. We use this term a lot I've heard it's used a lot in true crime, and we've used it on the podcast of the less dead. A lot of times sex workers in particular are considered the less dead because no one looks for them. Even though, yes, we know they're human, they're people, they have desires and loves and they have autonomy and rights but when it comes down to whose murders get solved, think about that. Whose murders get solved? And who's going to be very upset if someone's crypt who's still going to be probably prosecuted? Well, as of today, it's very different. But at this time, whenever the fuck it is, whatever year it is, it's still in that sense of the only people who are going to, who'll be protected from having their body scavenged are the aristocracy. And the Baron is part of the aristocracy. So not only are we talking about bodies as human commodities, but we're also talking about class differences and how that also plays a factor in whose parts are used to make these perfect, beautiful, next to godliness, God-like creatures.
Something that will represent the finest feature of the Serbian ideals.
What do you mean by this? Serbian ideals? I've never heard about it before.
But you don't understand. The Serbian race comes in direct descent of the glory from the ancient Greeks.
The horror isn't just physical either. It's also philosophical. Morrissey is showing us what happens when human bodies become nothing more than a collection of useful parts, when people are reduced to their biological function. What's particularly brilliant in this movie is how this connects to, like I mentioned, the class dynamics. The Baron isn't grave robbing other nobility. He's using the bodies of poor and working class people. The bodies that matter least to society are the ones that are most available for his experiments. This suggests something deeply uncomfortable, that even in a pre-capitalist or aristocratic context, some bodies are worth more than others, and some bodies are disposable. And unfortunately, that hasn't changed much today. Like, we all know who, now, for the most part, I mean, younger people probably don't, but most people know who Natalie Hollowell is. But do you know all the women who were the victims of the Gilgo Beach murders? Probably not. Now, I will let you look into both of those cases and tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm wrong. In that manner, we are assigning class value to the dead. Baron Frankenstein is, after all, he's an aristocrat. He lives in a decaying-ass castle. Like, this thing's terrible. Like, it's falling in upon itself. However, he's got the spare time and money to go out and pursue these experiments. Working class people are literally his raw material, like I mentioned. The film suggests that aristocratic power is built on the exploitation and violation of working class bodies. It's such an amazing... It's very brilliant in the way that they leave it there and they kind of let you stew on it. Because we also then we're doing this, and we are also paralleling it and doing juxtaposition with Baroness Frankenstein, his wife, who we see her riding, with her little phaeton, with her children who look like carbon copies of her and her wife and her husband. And the whole time she's talking about how terrible the poor people who her kids are going to school with are, and how it's disgusting that they have to go to school with these kids. And she's so happy that as of today, they never have to go back to that horrid school. And she goes, and something like along the lines of,
Terrible school. The children at this school are not at all on par with you. You are very special. You are different. They are jealous and tell awful tales about your mother and your father. Olga! Some of the things they say are true.
So it sounded like the kids that they were going to school with were like, hey, isn't your dad your uncle? Because your mom and your dad are brother and sister. And they're right. So she gets a little bit of a wink, wink, nudge, nudge to the kids, saying like, yeah, maybe a couple other rumors are true. The other rumor that possibly could be true, it's alluded to, but it's not specifically stated, is that this isn't the first time this has happened, that we think that possibly Baron and Baroness, their parents, which are the same parents, were also siblings. Again, not stated. It's just kind of implied, because I'm assuming because the children look like them, their children look like them, I'm assuming that they looked like their parents. Again, assumptions, not necessarily, like, don't quote me on that. My first note about this was, what in the VC Andrews is this bullshit? your funkles and your mants. So I do have to say, stylistically here, this is where we start to see the similarities between this, or we see where, where Del Toro got some of his references or influences, because the costumes in this In particular, Udo Kier's costume. There's one scene, he's walking outside the castle and he's got this beautiful coat on. And one side is like the collar's up a little bit. And so he's kind of like this. And he's mincing down the stairs and he's got those beautiful blue eyes. And he looks like you could have pulled that shot from 2025's Frankenstein. Like you could put Oscar Isaac in that same costume and I'd be like, yep. 100%. Looks very similar, as does Baroness's costumes, and even her look looks similar to Mia Goth as the cousin. I think she's their cousin in the movie. It's been a while since I've seen it, but and the mother, like both of her costumes and her affectations sometimes are very similar to the actress here playing the Baroness. Beautiful woman. She's absolutely gorgeous. This movie, though, I have to say, is literally like just a step up above softcore porn. We will see a lot of dicks in this one. We'll see one dick in particular a couple times. What I do love is that Udo Kier's wearing those fucking costumes. Those costumes are wearing him or he's wearing them. I'm not sure. His English, is wearing something. But around this time, we're also introduced to our protagonist, or one of our protagonists, Joe Dallesandro, playing Nick, who is a staple of Morrissey's movies, especially filmed those that he produced and filmed at the factory. So quite a staple of a number of these movies. But he, and we're also supposed to be, oh yes, FYI, we're supposed to be in Serbia. We do learn that at some point, as the Baron, the reason he's creating these characters to bring the beauty of the Greek gods to Serbia. So put that in your back pocket, I guess. It really doesn't play too much of it. Instead of saying we're in Germany or we're in, wherever, we are in Serbia, which, is probably very close, and I don't know anything about geography. So we're just going to move on. But this Mr. Joe Dallesandro, he comes to us to Serbia on the last train out of the Bronx because he sounds like fucking Mario out here. Like, oh my God. Like, it is. I went,
Well, are you really serious about wanting to be a monk?
I'm sorry, what? Who are you? And did you grow up here? Are you sure? Are you sure? You sure about that?
You sure about that?
Yikes. This is where this is Nick, and then we have his peer or his other co-worker, Sasha. And Sasha is, now talk about redheads, because I'm pretty sure he's a pretty red-headed person. Both of men are very attractive, but Sasha is like a very quiet soul. Joe's going on about but Joe also has a connection to, or I should say, sorry, Nick. Nick has a very strong connection to nature. That's kind of how he is portrayed, as this American virality, belief in democracy. And then he's also very attuned to nature. At some point during a sex scene, a lizard will just crawl onto his buttocks, and he just picks it up and he's like, oh, look, there's a lizard. I was like, what the fuck is happening? Anyhow, so we meet Sasha, and Sasha is his foil, pretty much. Is his opposite, where Joe is very much moves and thinks with his libido. He very much is protective of his friend Sasha, who's very much more of a gentle soul. He's not a sexual person. I would say more he's asexual than anything. He's, in fact, to the point where he doesn't dwell on that at all. He, in fact, wants to go somewhere get thee to a nunnery. He wants to go to a monastery so that he can be away from the pressures of sex and things that he just doesn't click with him. It doesn't make sense to him.
I want to live a closed street life.
You mean walk around in those robes?
Yeah.
And pray all the time?
I will do it.
I've never heard you pray. I've never even seen you pray. Now all of a sudden that's what you want to do for the rest of your life.
So these two are the ones who we'll follow through. We'll follow Nick mostly through the rest of the movie. Sasha, unfortunately, loses his head very shortly, and his head becomes the head of the male creature. Unfortunately, he left the brain inside, which in the brain case, Sasha's brain is the one that tells him, hey, Yeah, I don't like sex very much. It's all right. It's fine. It's not my thing. And that's not what he needs for his monster. Baron needs somebody. He needs Nick. And he thinks he accidentally gets Sasha when he meant to get Nick. So, bumbling bodies, am I right? Frankenstein, so we start seeing them putting the bodies together, in particular the female body, around about 32 minutes. There is, which should be like a surgery scene, and should be like pretty like, intense. On ER, they'd be like, did like it would be like, that fast-paced, tense music to like get you past the emergency. This is like a full-out fucking trumpet anthem, like a trumpet solo, like ba 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 ba. Like it might as well be John fucking Philip Sousa in the background. I'm like, this is so not working with this what they're doing here. He's finishing up working on the female creature, and he just, he's finishing up the working outside of her body, and then he just decides to top off that wound by sticking his dick in it.
So never give you life. You like that? Why are you looking at me? You filthy thing! Turn around!
Guys, this is one of 2 wound fucking scenes in this movie. Now, luckily, I don't see any dicks coming out. We just see dry humping onto, I think it's dry humping. I don't know. I honestly don't know if Baron is just going through the motions and comes in his pants, or if he literally has pulled his dick out and he's fucking the wound. He says to Otto, to know death, Otto, is to fuck life into the gallbladder.
What did he say?
I'm sorry? Well, Otto takes that to heart later on. Frankenstein, but this brings up another major theme, is that Frankenstein doesn't necessarily want to create life for the sake of, scientific advancement. Like in the 31 version with Colin Clive screaming,
It's alive! It's alive! It's alive! It's alive!
everyone remembers that line, and it still gives me goosebumps. It still sends a chill up my spine. The excitement this man has, and it's the tale of the hubris of creating, what is the result of playing God. Here, he wants to create beings that will satisfy his sexual fantasies. The female creature is designed specifically to be sexually appealing to the male creature. But, and this is the key point, the creatures are psychologically incompatible with sex. Like I mentioned, he put Sasha's head on this body. They don't understand desire the way humans do. They are just pieces and parts of different humans strung together and made to, like, literally a Barbie doll and a Ken doll, and he's mashing them together and saying, now have sex, now kiss. Like, that's what he's doing. They're a mismatch between biological form and psychological reality. In fact, what Baron says, first the breeding and then the children. Like, he's more excited about the children that the two will create rather than the actual life that he's created. It's like, yeah, I did that. But let's make a book. That leads us to where we see the Baroness start to kind of like take a big role in this movie, where she takes on Nick as her like female valet almost to a point where he is her sexual personal assistant. Like he's her on-call sex worker. But at the same time, he's also serving dinner. He's working around the house. So he's been taken out of the fields because he was a field worker, field hand, and now he is her body hand. So we see one of their first sex scenes, or we first see them together, where this is the most long and drawn out weird scene. The Baroness is literally just making out with Nick's armpit. And it's like slurping noises. She's like, it's gross. It made my misphonia want to puke in its mouth. Like, gross. And it's extended, too. It's quite extended. It seems like I was also high, but at the same time, like, it seems very long, very akin to the wound humping scene. Very long and projected and, like, prolonged and just maybe not needed. I'm going to cut that a little bit. But in both scenes, the Baron is displaying his most almost like uneducated and perverted vision of sex and sexuality. Like when she's slurping on his armpit, like, so remember, well, when he was having sex, when Baron was having sex with the wound, he literally turns to Otto and says, "You filthy thing, stop looking at me," and then proceeds to like come. But then he, during this armpit scene, is staring at her from his, you got peepholes. He's got face hole. He's got a whole ass face hole where he and his children are watching her slurp up his fucking Axe body spray like it's catnip. And you're like, that's not normal. That's not a normal thing for you to have your kids watch your wife, their mother, have sex with someone else. That's different. But after he watches his sister wife make out with Nick's armpit for about 8 hours, he discovers that someone has been accessing his lab. I mean, he's pretty much using it so they can get rid of Nick. But he confronts the Baroness, who pretty much turns Nick in, because at this point she's seen the creature that the Baron is creating, and she's like, I want some of that. And so she's like, yeah, take Nick. Can I fuck this thing for a couple hours? And he's like, sure. Baron's like, sure. Wait, this is the guy that broke into my lab? Like, he wants Nick to himself so he can remove his brain, because what he's going to do is he's going to replace Sasha's brain with Nick's brain.
Are you going back to 2 hours? I wouldn't say untouched, but intact.
I hope you have some success.
So he's like, yeah. Take the zombie. That's what we were calling it, a zombie, and just go fuck it. And I'll just be here doing things, some experiments. Later, when she's in the bedroom though with Sasha, I'm just going to call the creature Sasha. She instructs Sasha how to please her, and she tells him to hold her tight. And yeah, he does it pretty much. Just crushes her, absolutely fucking crushes her body. It's pretty rough, not gonna lie.
Squeeze me tighter. Tighter. Hold me close. Oh, not so close. I can't.
And meanwhile, in the lab, at the same time, while she's, boinking Sasha, Baron and Otto catch Nicholas, because he's now, once she's done with him, he tries to sneak in the lab because he knows that Sasha's there. So he's going to try to get Sasha out. Well, they catch him. They catch Nick. And they pretty much hang him from a pulley, like a stuck pig almost. Like kind of just, he's hanging up like this in the lab. And at the same time, Baron's like, all right, I got my brain. I need my body. So he goes off to get the body. While he's away, the mouse will play. And Otto, starts to brag to Nicholas about how he's just as smart as the Baron, and he can do these same experiments. He can bring creatures to life too, and so he also believes that he can fuck life into the gallbladder of the female creature. And he then proceeds to incorrectly fuck a wound and kills the creature. And Nick's kind of like, yeah, not right. You aren't correct. That's bad play on that one. But as soon as he realizes that the creature is dead, in walks the Baron, because the Baron can't find the zombie. And he's like, what the fuck did you do? And so he strangles Otto for killing his beautiful creation. So at this point, this is also where we get the line, I'm not going to die in Wayne. I had to listen to that about 3 or 4 times. I rewound it a number of times. But this is where Sasha kills the Baron, then ends up killing himself. Like, he's just kind of disgusted with himself, doesn't understand, because it's very much like when the creature is created in Frankenstein, where he is terrified of himself, he hates himself, and he's disgusted and scared of himself, because when he looks in the mirror is not when he looks down at himself is what he sees when he was alive as a human, essentially. And so we're left with the only person alive at this point is Nick. And we end where we began. We open the movie with the 2 children putting dolls in guillotines. And that's how we end the movie. But we've We're no longer playing with dolls. And that's how the movie ends. It's quite brilliant. I think the themes are great in here. The themes of sexuality and whether, it's that age-old, just because you can doesn't mean you should. And I like where Morrissey's taken the Frankenstein myth, and it's, like I said, it's not Frankenstein in this movie. The Baron is not making these to create life. He's making these because he can. He's not trying to, or he's not, sorry, he's trying to play God, but not in the sense of he's not trying to create immortality here. He's trying to create life. He's trying to procreate and make his perfect human.
This is a threshold, Otto, of a creation that will replace the worn-out trash that now populates and repopulates that planet.
But he doesn't give a shit if it lives, and it's not for the sake of humankind and how we can, progress science. It's just, yeah, maybe I'll fuck at some point. I don't know. Whatever I feel like. And having that control, because also Baron's wife is very opinionated and very powerful, and she has control in a lot of these conversations, so many fucking domestics in this movie. I'm like, really? In front of the kids? And it's a lot. It's quite a bit. It's definitely saying something. It's gory. We'll get to ratings in a second, but I will say that it's very interesting. I would wholeheartedly recommend this movie. We do a 4 different categories, 5-point scale, 1 being the least, 5 being the most. We start with blood and gore. And for 1943, I'm going to give this a 3. It's very gory. I thought for 1943, in particular the wound scene or the stitching scene, the incision, I should say, where they cut it open is gross. Gross. Like, pretty gross. There's a couple scenes where I was like, okay. Just because I think the effects were so good. And it's 1973. A lot of movies today will hide really gory pieces and parts in like dark lighting. This reminds me a little bit of The Substance, where The Substance was like, do you want to see a back? Do you want to see her come out of her back in like the fucking broad daylight? Because that's what's going to happen in this movie. That's kind of similar. It is not broad daylight, but it is kind of, because it's like full light in The Substance. And that's kind of the same thing here. We have bright light on cutting open an incision and pulling stitches. Like there's a point where he takes his forceps and he's pulling the string out, like the actual thread. I was like, nope. I mean, again, I've seen some shit, so I've seen a lot more gory things, but I think that this works really well. Next is spooky scary. I want to say 1.5, just because it makes you think, and I like that. I like the Frankenstein myth and allegory, so I enjoyed it here, and I thought he took it a different step in a different direction. I really liked. And I like that he's kind of like, he's playing into Morrissey is playing into the criticisms that Warhol gets for his own art. And he's using it to kind of say, but is Andy really doing this? Are you sure? Like, he might be bad, but he's not this bad. Like, that sort of thing. And it's not like it's, giving excuses for them but I think it does play a little bit into it, and it works really well. Sex and nudity. Oh, that'll be a 3. I haven't really get into it, but we saw Joe D'Alessandro's dick twice. There's some real weird sex. Like, there's nothing sexy in this movie, except for Udo Kier's face. There's nothing really sexy. It's a movie full of sex and sexuality, but there's not a lot of sex, and nothing about it's very sexy. So 3 for just nudity. I mean, he goes to a brothel with the biggest breasted women I've ever seen. I mean, outside of plastic surgery show or something like that. But the ladies were very well endowed and were beautiful. Everybody in this movie was very, very nice looking. It was 1973 and everyone kind of looked wet, but still it worked. Fun and entertainment. So spooky little ghosts. I really enjoyed this movie. I think this is a 3 for me. This is a solid. I'd watch it again. I'd recommend it. I'd recommend it for certain people. I'm not going to recommend it wholeheartedly because I don't know if a lot of people will get... Well, I don't know. It's pretty funny. It's so campy that it is funny. I'd wholeheartedly recommend this. I'm actually interested to see some of the other trilogy, any under the movies in his trilogies, Morrissey's trilogies. I do like Warhol. One of these days would love to get to his museum in Pittsburgh. So I'd recommend it. The themes are hard to miss. They're pretty blatant and on display. So yeah, I'd recommend. If you like what you have heard here today, like and subscribe below, hit the notification button, give us some hype points, please. All of our places you can find us are in our downstairs area below, so check us out. We should be having a to be or not to be up soon very shortly. And other than that, join us next time and keep it spooky, bitches.